All right, guys, welcome back. I'm Dan with Halstead Laser Engraving, and I'm going to do another short Halstead Helps video. I've got a couple lasers, three to be exact, I guess. Um, the one I'm specifically going to talk about today is the Haoshin HT460. This lesson will apply to other lasers, though, as long as you have a milliamp meter either built into it or you added one on yourself. Um, I see a lot of questions in the groups about power levels and the little power knob that may be on your laser. What does it do? Where should I have it set? That kind of stuff. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit today. Not going to get too crazy. But basically, for starters, if you do have a laser with a milliamp meter and that little power knob, you can essentially set that power knob so that you never accidentally exceed your maximum power levels for your glass tube. If you do not have the little knob and you just have a milliamp meter, you can find out your max power level so that you hopefully never exceed it, which is fairly easy, as long as you keep your power levels set where they should be. Um, let's jump into it though. So the first thing you need to do is you need to open the door on your laser to wherever your glass tube is, and you're going to then look at the label on your laser tube, and this will tell you um, the manufacturer of your tube and the model number. So then you're going to want to Google that info and look up, find the specs of your tube, and find out what the max operating current should be. Once you find that max operating current, that is what we're looking for when we do our power line test, so that we know where to stop as far as high power levels. So what's with high power levels in glass tubes? Well, if you overexert your tube, you can damage it, destroy it, shorten its lifespan. All stuff you definitely don't want to do because, well, tubes are not cheap. And most of us need to keep our lasers functioning every day to pump out work for our customers. So, what you want to do is if you've got your milliamp meter on your laser, on the HT460, it's on the top by all the other controls. On some of the other lasers, it might maybe inside on the actual power unit of the laser. So you might have to open up your laser if it's not, on top. Look around for it. It should be a little digital gauge. Um, but what you want to do here in lightburn is you open up lightburn and you're going to want to create a series of lines. Now I've already created this so we don't have to sit here and do it all, but I'm going to show you how to set up a couple of them. So you'll see that I've got a whole bunch of lines here, and on starting with the black line at the top here, I've got it set to 50 speed and 15 power. And take note that these are all lines, none of them are fill. Um, so the reason for the slow speed is we want to be able to watch the meter as the laser travels down the bed and lasers this line. That way we can record what number we see on that digital milliamp meter. So like I said, I've set up all these lines. I left the last couple just to kind of show you how to set it up. without having to watch me do all of them. So I've got it set up here. They're all for 50 speed. We start at 15 power in increments of 5, and I've worked my way up to 75 so far. So for this line here, we click on it. I chose this color as a layer. I just kind of went, as you'll notice here, if you look at my lines, I just kind of went, black, then blue, then red, then green, so on and so forth, all the way up here, until we get to these last couple that I purposely did not set up for us. So green is where I stopped here. This number 11. So I want to get these back in order. 60, 65, 70, 75. So our next line here will be 50 power, or 50 speed, 80 power. Then we got one more here. We just choose the next layer. We're going to switch it to 50 speed and 85% power. Now, typically, 85 is going to be kind of the top end for milliamps. As you start running your test, obviously, if you're hitting your max milliamp for your tube somewhere in the 60 range or 65 range, 70, then you want to stop and you don't want to do the rest of these. Vice versa, if you get to 85 and say your max is 28 and you're at 25 milliamp on your meter, maybe you want to run one more just to check it out. But typically 15 to 85 is a good range. So now that we've got this all set up, we've got all these lines, you don't want them to run all together because you want to be able to have it run your line while you're watching the milliamp meter, so you can write down the reading. So what I typically do is when I get a new laser, CO2 laser, is I'll take a notepad and I'll write down, the numbers 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, so on and so forth up to 85. Then that way, right next to those numbers, I'm able to write down the milliamp reading on my gauge. So we've got that all set up. Everything looks good here. What you're going to want to do is turn on selected graphics, use selection origin, and you can set it to absolute chords. You can do current position, whatever's comfortable for you. I use a lot of current position, but basically, you're going to put some kind of piece of scrap. Typically people use cardboard on the bed of their laser. Frame this whole thing out. Obviously, you're going to want to make sure that this is hitting on the laser bed where you want it. Maybe you don't even want it to laser anything. You just want it to laser the honeycomb. Whatever. I guess it doesn't really matter. What really matters is running the test and watching the MA meter. So once you figure out, if you're going to laser this onto something or you're just going to let it run, you're going to highlight starting at the top here. You're going to hit start on your laser. And as it starts making that line down the laser bed, you're going to watch that milliamp meter and you're going to see what number pops up on there, and you're going to write that down on your piece of paper next to the 15. And you're going to do that. You're going to keep doing that working your way up the power scale until you hit your max MA. For me, on my 460, it was 28 milliamps. And I hit that at 85% power. So for me, what I do with all my lasers is I leave the power knob all the way at 100. And I just know that going forward, I shouldn't use power levels above 85. And if I'm being honest, I typically don't even use power levels, above like 65 or 70. Just because I want to make sure that the tubes in my lasers last as long as they possibly can. And I don't do a ton of cutting either. I do a lot of engraving and marking, so typically my power levels are much, much lower on a day-to-day basis, somewhere in the 14% power to like 30% power range for most of my projects. But I know that if I do need to cut something thick or I want to do something faster, I can go up to 85% power if I want. Now, the other thing you can do with that knob, if you've got it on your MA meter, is once you figure out, 85% power is 28 milliamps. I don't want to go above that. You can turn the knob down and you can run this test again and you can find out, where 100, if you put in 100% power here in lightburn, you can make that so it matches 28 milliamps on your readout, so that you're essentially making it so 100% power actually equals 85% power. You can turn that dial down and you can get it dialed in that way. Hope that makes sense. It's kind of, I don't know, I'm not the best at explaining things, but I think that'll make sense for most people. But essentially, like I said, once you find your max milliamp setting for your tube, you go through, you create this, you run through these little lines, you watch your milliamp meter, and you write everything down. Then that way hey, I don't want to go above 85% power because I want my tube to last for a long time. And then you're just set. You got something that you need to cut that's thick. You can play with speeds and power levels and without worrying about overpowering your tube. So I think I got everything covered here. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. If you got questions, feel free to comment. If you want to see more videos like this, definitely hit that like and follow button. Yeah, otherwise, have a good day. Have a great weekend. And let's make some money selling some laser stuff. Thanks, guys.